Oh, well, it made a ding. It made a ding. Does this mean we're live? I think it means we're live. Oh, God, it's been a while since I've done this. All right, welcome to the Broken Chatbox. We are back. Yes, it's been like a month, but we got some great topics that we're going to go on to today. I'm going to talk about collaboration efforts, maybe some other stuff as well. I'm going to talk about some DRM on early access games and the kind of relevance in it and why it's important, because Canon Exiles actually released an accidental DRM-free version and everything like that. It had de novo. Anyways, game in the background is PSO2, one of the games I've been playing recently, so I'll be talking about games I've been playing as well, and we're going to end up starting off on that. I also have some interesting topics about collaborations, as, you know, this podcast was originally about doing just collaborations. Like, I was just like, oh, I'm not even going to have a show if I don't have people on it, and now I kind of mostly do it solo, and so I'm kind of like, hey, I have a good discussion about that. I forgot to start my timer. All right, whatever. That's fine. I have a timestamp. I'll remember, hopefully, probably not. I don't know how long I'm going to go for this one. But anyways, oh my god, I have mail. I'm playing PSO2 in the background, by the way. Also, I have the audio-only version. Actually, I should make sure I have the audio-only version running. Yes, okay, so there is now an audio-only version available on my SoundCloud, which is over on soundcloud.com/MICHAEL, and I forgot to mute my phone. Wow, this is just going great so far. You could tell it's been a while since I've done this. There we go. All right, sorry I'm taking so long to start off. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about how this week has been. I kind of want to real quickly explain why I've been gone for so long. Basically, life is freaking crazy as hell right now, and so I've just been kind of taking a break from it. I haven't been able to get anybody else joining me for the podcast. Evan the Tank has been busy as well with other stuff as well. He hasn't been on during the podcast time and stuff like that, or else we would have been doing it as well. But, you know, overall, it's basically just one of those cases of, you know, stuff happened and I just haven't been able to do it. I have a quest available here, apparently. Oh yeah, this is the daily scanner. I'm in the cafe. I don't know anything what I'm doing. I haven't played this game in a while, but I recently got one of my friends to play it. So PSO2, for those who don't know, is a Japanese MMO and everything like that. It's all instance-based, but it's probably one of my favorite MMOs ever created because it is just absolutely fantastic to play. It is wonderful and really, really, really fun. But the sad part is it's only available in Japanese and Chinese. Actually, I think the Chinese version has English translation in it, but it's very spotty, and it's obviously translated from Chinese and not translated from Japanese. Therefore, you know, for example, the Force class, which is the class that I'm not actually playing a Force class right now, but they're the class that uses, like, magic and stuff like that. They're actually called the Wizards, and it's very strange. All right, I just need to set up myself here because I had no idea what to play today because I've just been all over the place. I don't even know what level I am right now. I'm level 44. Is that going to be super hard or very hard? It might be super hard. So I'm going to go to a super hard block. And I can't because the block's full. That's great. All right, anyways, PSO2 is probably one of my favorite games. I've recently been coming back to it over and over again because I don't know why, but I really like MMOs, like quite a lot. And there's not a lot of good ones that end up coming out here and there. It's mostly just ones that kind of come out. I know that Black Desert released, and I'm like, that looks interesting. And then I played it, and I was like, that was interesting. And that was pretty much all I got from it. I actually received a review key for that game, and then it actually denied my access after the first day the game was released for whatever reason, and support never ended up getting back to me. They're like, oh, well, it's probably some problem with your account, and then they just never fixed it. And so, yeah, I just don't play it because of that, so that's kind of unfortunate. Yeah, but I really like MMOs, and I really wanted to play an MMO again because I just like MMOs. And so this is the one that I always end up coming back to because this game is getting constantly updated. It has new stuff everywhere. They just announced that they're going to be increasing the level cap, and they're going to be adding some new class effects again, and they're adding new challenge mode stuff. It's just a fun game in general, but it is in Japanese, and so that's why a lot of people don't play it in the US, which is unfortunate because I think it's a great game to play. I want to go to the forest area, so we're going to go to the forest area. I hope I was right on the levels. Yes, I was right. It is. No, it's very hard, not super hard. Whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to be running around solo. I think I'm playing Bouncer right now, which is the sort of mage class that runs around on boots, and they have twin blades, I believe. And you can also use a staff if you have an all-class staff, which is pretty sweet. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about other games I've been playing this week. So, what have I been playing this week? I played quite a few games, actually, this week. The only notable ones is Mega Dimension Neptunia V2. I finally have a review ready for it. I haven't finished recording it because my recording was not agreeing with me in the last few days, and I haven't had time to like go through and try and fix it. And so basically I don't have it done because of that, but it should be releasing on Monday. So, you know, if you're interested in that game, I actually released a review for Rebirth 1, which is something I was working on for a really long time. And so you can end up checking out that review if you're interested in that series. I won't talk about it here on the podcast because I've talked about it on so many of these podcasts. And yeah, it's just an awesome series that I enjoy quite a lot. So if you're interested in Japanese MMOs, or not MMOs, but JRPGs and everything like that, it's definitely a game to end up checking out, although it is a little bit anime cutesy, which kind of throws a lot of people off. Although Mega Dimension Neptunia kind of breaks away from that and is just a game I recommend to anybody who likes JRPGs, really. It's semi-tactical combat and everything like that. Check out those videos if you're interested. But yeah, another game that I played, Assault Android Cactus, is a game that I finally ended up picking up, which is actually a top-down shooter. And so you play as a bunch of little android girls, and they run around and they shoot robots because they've all gone psycho. And it's actually incredibly fun. I was not 100% a fan of it when I first started because the graphic style was not particularly something I was interested in. I was like, you know what, this graphic style is kind of meh. It's like lower quality mesh styles. Everything has a sort of weird texture to it and everything like that. But then once I actually started playing it, I was like, oh, this is why everyone's recommending me to play it, because it is absolute fun and chaos. It's very much arena-based, and so there's a bunch of arenas, but the arenas are constantly changing. And so, like, on the very first stage, you're in this little circle, and it's like, all right, cool, there's some holes in there, and the robots climb out of them, and that's pretty much it. And you're like, all right, you know what, I get the concept of it. But then immediately in the second stage, all of a sudden, the floor starts falling below you. It starts switching around. You get conveyor belts showing up. You get random laser things popping up on the sides, and you're like, all right, whoa, this is awesome, and it's chaos, and I absolutely love it. And it's really fun. The problem with it, though, is that it is not graphically a good game. It graphically looks like terrible, actually. I absolutely hate the art style. It's not bad, as in the art style is at least consistent, but it's kind of like those lower style meshes to where they just kind of throw a texture over everything. And so it's kind of like this bumpy texture that everyone's going to be looking at, and it all looks exactly the same, sort of-ish, except for like certain textures. Now I kind of get it because they're going for that whole synthetic, everything's supposed to look like it's made of metal, but the problem is metal doesn't really have a kind of grainy texture. Most of the time it's a very smooth, at least that's the way you perceive it in games, and so the entire game kind of feels almost like Play-Doh in a sort of sense, and that really ruins it for me in a way, because, you know, I'm very much about the art, you know, style. I don't care if your graphics aren't all that great. You know, for example, the Neptunia games, they do not have good graphics. They are, like, I don't know, probably lower end. I mean, they were originally on the PlayStation Vita for the remakes for Rebirth, although they do look decently. Like, they scale up fairly well, aside from the UI, which looks terrible on PC. It's really blurry. But aside from that, like, it looks fine, and I'm great with it because the art style is consistent. It looks great in that sort of sense. It's so shaded, and it looks fun. And yeah, Assault Android Cactus doesn't have that perk. But the thing is, the gameplay is completely solid. So the way it plays is you actually have its top-down shooter, and you have several different types of characters, and you unlock other ones as you go through the story, which isn't particularly long either, which is another strike to the game. It's about 2 to 3 hours, about. You know, I'm at the very last boss, and it took me an hour and a half to get there. So yeah, obviously that's going to depend on how good you are at the game, but ultimately it doesn't take all that long. And then when you end up playing through that, you get multiple different characters, and they each have 2 different weapons. So you have a primary weapon, and then you have a sub-weapon. And so the very first character has a kind of machine gun thing, which is kind of standard, and then also has a flamethrower for close range that does tons of damage. The other character that you get at the start has a little pistol that is actually homing missiles, and so you don't actually have to aim with that character. And then you also get some attack orbs, I think is what she has, or no, that's the shotgun girl, which is the 4th girl in the game. I can't really remember. Oh, hey, an event came up on PSO2. I'm going to ignore it and just jump around and kill wolves and things. And then also you get different characters that actually have really interesting different kind of weapons. Like they have one that just uses a sniper rifle, and then you also use kind of proximity and landmines, which is actually really, really interesting because it completely changes the way that you play through the stages. And the game does have co-op, although it is local only. I would have loved to see online multiplayer in that, because then I would have actually been able to play multiplayer. You can turn on AI multiplayer. It's just not as fun, I would say, because the AI is a little bit too good. It's, you know, they shoot too perfectly to be really really blamed, and they grab all your power-ups, like just steal them up. But yeah, ultimately, like when you're playing with multiple people, it's incredibly fun because you get different types of play styles going into it, and you're like, all right, one character's a sniper rifle, so they're going to be sitting in the back, kind of doing whatever they want to do, and then you're going to have one person up in front with a flamethrower burning everybody. You know, there's one character with a shotgun, so they'll be up in front, you know, kind of dealing as much damage as they can. Well, the sniper rifle, you know, is like a one-shot kill for pretty much everything, so they'd be, you know, one-shotting everything in the front line. So yeah, it's a really interesting game. There's a bunch of power-ups, too. The power-ups are fairly basic, except that, you know, you're not really going to be relying on them too much. It's mostly relying on whatever character you pick. The game also has boss battles and things like that are, once again, very interesting. So you'll have, like, a boss battle that'll have different mechanics, such as one that's, like, very much a bullet hell, going to spin around in circles and everything like that. Another one summons a bunch of flies, and you got to destroy the flies to actually deal damage. You know, it's just mad fun. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did just based off of the title screen alone. Like, I was looking forward to it because everyone was recommending it to me, and then once I ended up trying it, I'm like looking at the title screen, which looks abhorrent. When I get my review done of it, it's not going to be pretty when I get to that point in the game. But yeah, it's fun. It's worth at least looking at for the gameplay alone. If you like top-down shooters and you're interested in maybe not a long experience, it may not be worth full price for most people because, you know, once again, it's like a 2 to 3 hour experience, and it doesn't have a lot of replayability. You can earn points and unlock like concept art and stuff like that, but like aside from that, you really don't get much going from it. It does have like a daily sort of challenge thing, but once again, it's super easy and not really any extra point to playing it, which is unfortunate. But yeah, that's the other game that I think was notable that I played this week. I did try a few other games. I still haven't tried Transistor. I've bought it months and months ago, and I haven't actually finished it yet. So, yeah, that's kind of how that goes. Anyways, let's go ahead and go into some news of this week. You know, basically, I was gone for a while. So the Broken Chatbox hasn't been going for, I think, a month now. And so I'm not going to try and cover up on all that news. I know that there was some big Switch things, and people were asking, you know, what's your opinion on the Switch stuff, you know, in my friend groups and everything like that. And basically it comes down to, I'm one of those people that's going to be like, wait and see with the Switch. You know, the Switch could end up being absolutely fantastic. It could end up being absolutely terrible. We don't know yet. The launch lineup, not worth purchasing, in my opinion. You know, it does not look interesting enough that I'm like, oh, I want to go get that right now. It looks like something that I'm going to wait, you know, 12 to even a year, you know, 12 months to even a year to end up checking out because it's just not worth it. Oh, sweet. Now there's a boss here. All right, that's fine. Okay. I destroyed a thing. I don't have a light one, so I'm going to be using lightning. That's great. Yeah, so, man, there was another game that I played recently that I was, like, totally wanting to talk about, and I can't remember it anymore, so I guess it's not that important. I really cannot remember, because there was another game I'm like, oh, I gotta talk about this, but I played it like 3 weeks ago, and I just cannot remember now. I don't know, I've been playing more Overwatch as well. They had the big event thing, so if you don't know what's going on, the Year of the Rooster, Happy New Year's to China. They had, or is it China? Or is it other Asian countries too? Man, I am so uncultured. But yeah, it's a Happy New Year's to that. A lot of games are having events based off of that. Oh yeah, I've been playing Monster Super League. That's the other game. They have a new event going on as well, which is absolutely ridiculous. They expect you to catch like hundreds of characters and things like that for it, and I'm probably going to try and at least do it because I've been playing that game nonstop since I played it actually. I talked about it a lot in my other episodes of the podcast, so you can end up checking those out. But yeah, basically it's a turn-based sort of free-to-play MMO thing on mobile, and it's actually really, really good. Like, it feels like an actual game rather than a mobile thing, and it's actually quite fantastic. However, some of the events are getting a little bit crazy, but the developer is willing to actually change things, and so, you know, it was originally like, oh, you have to catch like 300 of this guy, and it was like, oh my god, that's absolutely ridiculous. And like, oh yeah, you gotta do it twice too. And I'm like, oh, what? That's even more ridiculous. And then they toned it down, so now it's like, oh, you only gotta catch 30 of them, it's okay. And it's like, alright, you know what? That's fine. And catching 30 in that game isn't necessarily that difficult. You just have to play it, and it's not hard to be active in that game. So, yeah, it's fun to play every once in a while. Other news. I don't really know what news has gone on this week. I've been really busy, like I said. Like, even today, I was watching my sister all day, so I haven't really gotten time to catch up. But I do know, basically, this happened a while ago. What was it? Fuck. Can't remember what it is. Scalebound. There we go. The game called Scalebound, which I was actually looking forward to, but apparently not enough to remember its name. But it was another Platinum game, and it was going to be releasing on the Xbox One and possibly PC. I was excited for a possible PC release. Has been canceled. This happened like 3 weeks ago or whatever. And apparently it happened because there was conflicts between Microsoft and Platinum Games. Now, I'm a big fan of Platinum Games because they make a lot of really good action games. They kind of have like this kind of genre or subgenre kind of maxed out almost. They're like, yeah, we are the genre masters, but they also make a lot of not so great games. They kind of have like a B team going on. I don't know if it's like one team that makes everything or if they just like cut budgets on it or if it's actually like multiple teams within the same company, but like, yeah, they make some questionable products, so it doesn't surprise me that Scalebound actually ended up kind of crashing, because even when I saw the original trailer, now I was excited for it, because one, it's Platinum Games, number two, it has freaking dragons in it, but at the same time, I kind of looked at it and I'm like, this doesn't really make a lot of sense. Like, it looked like a lot of ideas just thrown together, like, hey, this is a bunch of checkboxes we wanted to check, and we don't really know what it's going to be yet, and it's like, alright, you know what, that's fine for, you know, E3 when they showed it off originally, but then when it came to, like, you know, actually talking about the game, we just didn't hear anything about it. And it just kind of became one of those things where nobody really knew anything about it and nobody really cared. And I was excited for it because it looked like a game that, you know, if they ended up refining it out and everything like that, it would actually end up being quite fun. I wasn't really looking forward to it as a multiplayer experience as they were trying to advertise it as later on. They were like, oh yeah, it also has multiplayer, by the way. I was more interested in it as maybe a story-based kind of action game that would follow a character in an open world with dragons and giant beasts and things, because we don't have a lot of those. You know, we have Monster Hunter, we have Phantasy Star, and that's about it. There's a few others that are kind of, you know, once again, like B-team type stuff, and they're not all that great, and they don't really interest me all that much, but, like, yeah, games like Phantasy Star like this would be absolutely fantastic to see another kind of version or kind of different world than Phantasy Star done in this sort of action style. I'm going to take forever to fight this boss. This is going to be half of the podcast, just me killing this boss, because I'm on a very low level class right now. I should have switched classes. Oh yeah, I have a Photon Blast. I can use that. There we go. This is when you use your special mag powers, and this one summons a laser, so it's going to shoot him with a laser, or it's going to miss completely. It's... Oh no, it actually aimed! Yay! It hit him! Sweet. And I broke his leg, which means I can hit his weak points for massive damage! Anyways. Yeah, and also there looked like there was a giant crab in Scalebound, which I'm sure would have made Sony happy, because they would not have been the only one that could have made a terrible, terrible presentation with a giant enemy crab. So yeah, that was unfortunate. I mean, that happened a while ago, so everyone kind of knew about it already. But, like, yeah, I just thought it was unfortunate. I was somewhat excited for it just because I was interested in the concept. But I definitely see why it kind of crashed. You know, there's chances are Microsoft saw that it wasn't going to end up being successful. And, you know, say as much as you will about Microsoft's publishing side. Like, they actually publish at least decent games, you know, for the most part. And they kind of know when something isn't going to work out. I know that a lot of people like to bang on Microsoft, and they always bring up stuff like Banjo-Kazooie and things like that, and they don't actually know anything about what actually happened in development. You know, Banjo-Kazooie, Nuts and Bolts, was already going to be a crafty buildy game, and then Microsoft took over, and they're like, alright, make it a crafty buildy game, and they just kind of gave them creative freedom, and that's what ended up happening. And I have a feeling that there were some bounds to where, you know, maybe Microsoft wanted it to be more graphically impressive while, you know, Platinum Games was either unable to because of the hardware or just incompetent enough to actually build the game properly. And they weren't able to, like, make sacrifices in between to kind of, you know, show those limits. Like, maybe they would have like, oh, well, we have to have the draw distance this far because we have giant monsters and stuff like that. And then Microsoft's like, oh, but it has to be this pretty or whatever. And then they'd be like, oh, but we can't do this and stuff like that. And there's also stuff like maybe game direction as well. It looked like the game was trying to go in so many different directions. And I don't know if that's on Microsoft or if that's on Platinum Games. It's, you know, once again, there's very little information about it. Maybe there's more that I haven't seen, you know, somewhere buried within the minds of the internet. You know, maybe you can end up finding more information on that if you're interested, but I was unable to find anything. But yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate because, once again, you know, seeing unique IPs showing up is always a good idea to kind of check out because we don't see a lot of new IPs. I wish we saw more new IPs over and over again. Like Recore, for example, like, for as not good as that game is, I still like it because it's new, it's refreshing, it's old mechanics, and it's a niche title. but at the same time, it's at least interesting enough to actually go through and want to try out, because it is something new in the current generation, which is awesome. It's also on PC, which is cool. You know, I played Gears of War 4, and was not happy with that, because that's one of those IPs that just never evolves, and that's kind of how most of them go. I mean, I'm fortunate that the Neptunia franchise, which I've been talking about a lot, you know, they actually evolve the series as each game goes, and the games only get better and better as they progress. And so it's like Mega Dimension Neptunia is absolutely fantastic. And the other games I wouldn't recommend to everyone, but like, you know, it's a series that evolves. Not all of them evolve. You know, Call of Duty, it slightly changes here and there, and when they actually do drastic changes, everyone gets mad. Battlefield has unfortunately become the stalemate of chess, to where nobody wants to lose, and they're both in checkmate. So, yeah, and they're arguing over whose turn it is. It's infuriating, because I actually liked Battlefield back in the day. Anyways, other news. Let's talk about political stuff real quick. This won't be long. Yeah, so there's an immigration ban going on in the U.S. right now, which is actually hugely infecting a lot of companies. And I'm not going to say my personal views aside from the fact that I believe everyone is equal no matter where the hell they're from. And I think it's dumb. But the thing about it is that a lot of, you know, development companies and publishers are speaking out against it. And so it is a big movement. So if you want to end up joining in that movement, there are places to find signatures and things like that. And, you know, this is both big and small. Everyone's talking about it in the kind of gaming industry right now, because it's huge. Because if you don't know how the gaming industry works, you know, it is a worldwide sort of thing. It doesn't matter where the game is made. There's going to be someone from an outer region, you know, and certain regions that are currently blocked for immigration and everything like that are where some of these people come from. You know, brilliant minds, great people, and they're just unfortunately not able to move in because of political bull. So yeah, I just want to show my support to, you know, all the people that are, you know, speaking out against it. It is very, very important to have our voices heard, and I recommend you at least look into, you know, making sure that the land of the free still remains the free, and so that we can also get awesome video games made, you know, without biases and racism being thrown in there, which is, you know, always a good thing to have that type of stuff not in our content. But yeah, it's super awesome to see the gaming industry kind of stepping up and being like, hey, we can't have this. You know, even with stuff like the FCC, with all the internet stuff like that, we see them kind of pop up here and there, but that's kind of like a long haul thing. But this was a very quick turnaround to where everyone's like, hey, no, this is not good. This is not cool. And, you know, so support to everyone who is, you know, fighting the good fight and fighting for what you believe in. So thank you. And, you know, as a special note, you know, no matter where you're from or who you are, you're always welcome here on the Broken Chatbox and, you know, on my personal channel as well. So, yeah, if you want to get away from political stuff, aside from this special note, go ahead and join me. So, yeah, hopefully all that ends up getting sorted out, and hopefully nobody ends up, you know, having too much trouble from it. I feel like it won't last long, so that is a good thing. Other news that is kind of important this week, and the kind of side of Denuvo, the anti-kind of piracy device thing. I don't really know what to call it. It's anti-device or anti-pirating software that they implement in games. A lot of people hate it because it's DRM. People just hate DRM in general. Now, I understand why DRM exists. There's plenty of people who are just going to steal every game that they possibly can. You can look at the music industry of people who download music illegally. You can look at the movie industry where people watch movies for free and stuff like that. But with games are sort of have an exception because, you know, there's the whole argument of like, oh, well, if it's good, I end up buying it. And no, you don't. Shut up. That's not how it works. But, you know, regardless, you know, if you don't want to actually pay up front for it, then just don't play the game. You know, that's how it should be. I'm not supporting piracy. You know, there's some old games like emulators and stuff like that. I have to support emulators, but at the same time, try and get your ROMs legitimately, or at least own a copy and stuff like that. You know, that's just my views on it. But Denuvo has been getting cracked more and more lately. However, you know, and they've been saying like, hey, we're not uncrackable. You know, a lot of people were saying like, oh, Denuvo's uncrackable. It's not, and they never said that. So, you know, people stop saying that it is because it isn't. You know, and they've never actually claimed they are. They said it's hard to crack, and their entire goal is to make it sure that their sort of initial sales period is protected. It's not about long term. You know, it's not about like 5 years down the line. It's like, oh, people can't crack this video game. It's about, you know, not kind of missing out on your initial sales release window. And yes, that does affect sales. You know, a lot of people like to kind of point it out, well, like DRM stops people from buying the game. Yeah, but so does people just not buying the game. Like that's that's how it works. So yeah, I don't particularly like DRM. And there's a lot of reasons for that. You know, there's a lot of games that I enjoy that are not DRM, such as Starbound, for example. That's not DRM, and the reason for that, you know, they have a good reason for that, is because they want people to be able to set up servers. Now, another game, the last crack in de novo was for Canon Exiles, or did I say that right? Is it Canon or Canon? Or, I don't know. It looks like Barbarian, so I said Canon. I said it in my little intro thing that was saying I was live, too, and I'm like, I have no idea how to say this word. But yeah, long story short, basically, instead of it actually being cracked, this was not on de novo this time. It was actually on the developer. And so they accidentally released a non-DRM version onto Steam. They pushed an update, and since there was some bugs in the original code for that build with the DRM they were having, when they ended up updating it, or uploading it up to Steam, they actually forgot to re-enable the DRM after they fixed the bugs. And so, basically, a bunch of people got a DRM-free version. Now, obviously, they were fairly quick to notice this. Within 24 hours, you know, the other version was uploaded. The game was unable to be downloaded for a small little while as well. But this didn't stop pirates from grabbing it and kind of praising it out. Now, the reason why this is actually fairly significant, because you'd say like, oh, well, that's an online-only game, you know, it's an online survival sort of game. The game actually has support for private servers, which means that pirates are now setting up private servers, and that is completely viable. And this kind of goes into that discussion of a whole Starbound thing. This is why I mentioned Starbound, because Starbound, once again, it lives off of having those private servers. You know, it wants people to be able to make their own servers and have their own sort of worlds possible to play in on their own. And they want you to build communities and everything like that, and they have like official server support and everything like that, and it's kind of fantastic. And Canon Exiles is doing the same thing because it's pretty awesome. I know that Ark does some of that same stuff as well, except I think you have to buy a license or something like that. I don't know how necessarily it works. I haven't looked at it recently. But for Canon Exiles, basically they released that DRM free version, and they're like, oh snap, like that shouldn't have happened. However, there's an interesting point to this, because immediately after it happened, within 24 hours, we got some marketing terms thrown at us. So basically, I forgot who it was, I don't have an article up at the moment, but one of the head guys was like, yeah, well, this kind of sucks, but the game's going to keep getting updated, so people who have the pirated version aren't going to be getting those updates, and maybe it'll push people to buy more games, which is making people speculate that maybe they leaked the game on purpose. And this would not be the first time that this would have happened. You know, there are games that actually released, I can't call any off the bat, I just know that there was a few that actually leaked copies. I think this was it The Sims? I think it might have been The Sims. Maybe it's not The Sims. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. I don't know. There's certain games that end up being released, you know, pirated versions that are not actually, you know, the full game. They're missing content. They have added bugs. They have added quirks. You know, and I'm not talking about just anti-piracy stuff like, oh, you log into the game, it's like, hey, buy a legitimate version, or, you know, the character is missing, or a level's impossible, or like the Game Dev Tycoon, whatever one ended up having it so that, like, if you pirated, or if you had a pirated version of the game, actually that might have been the game that intentionally leaked the game, I'm not sure. Anyways, it had it so that if you had a pirated version, it would make it so that your games always failed because of piracy, which was hilarious to read. But yeah, like, this isn't the first time that, you know, that sort of marketing spiel has been done before. Like, that's been a thing. You know, they'll release like 50% of the game in a pirated version and then lock the rest of the game behind the full version. And I don't know if it works, and I don't know if it's smart, but it is something that people end up doing. And this kind of goes into the spiel of, you know, I don't think that that's actually the case, because if you were going to do something like that, you'd make a freaking demo version, or you'd make an open kind of private server thing, because other games have done that. Phantasy Star Universe, which is the game that came before Phantasy Star Online, or Online 2, it actually had that. It had a demo server that had the very, 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 very early game content. And it was like, yeah, you can play this version for free, but if you want all the updates, you want to play with everyone else, and hey, you can go play this. Now, it didn't last as long as the game. Obviously, the game lasted a lot longer. Not particularly longer in the US, unfortunately, but, you know, they ended up closing those servers down before the game ended up closing down, obviously, because, you know, the demo costs money, and they weren't getting as many players in the end from it. You know, after a while, it has diminishing returns. But it is an interesting kind of thing as well, because what if it was? You know, what if this is a marketing thing, and what if this is end up being something we see in the future, like an kind of off kind of canon sort of way to market your game, like give it to a bunch of people for free and then update it a bunch, or only release like a part of the game. But this also makes me question of, if it is true, why wouldn't they just release a demo of some sort of test trial? Like, MMOs do trials all the time, like Black Desert Online I was talking about earlier today. It has a small trial. Like, you can get a 7 to 14 day trial for free just for signing up. You don't have to buy the game or anything, and you can just play it. And, stuff like that exists. And I don't know why an early access game can't have that. Maybe it's because it's early access that they don't have that. And maybe they're like, maybe we don't want to burn out all these free trials early on. But at the same time, it's really, really popular right now. People love it streaming. I've had some collaboration talks as well where people are asking me like, hey, do you have this game? It'd be great to play with somebody. And I'm like, sorry, dude, I'm not that into survival games, for one, and number two, I ain't got the money for it right now, unfortunately. I would have it if I, could get a review key, but that has been unsuccessful. But that would be awesome if I could get a review key, guys. Please and thank you. Because I would probably end up streaming it with a few other guys. So, yeah, anyways, that's kind of one of those things, but it does make me question Steam as well. Like, should Steam have more verification on their uploads? Because this isn't the first time it's happened with errors like this. So, another game that I have in my library, and there was actually one day I was like, I'm going to play this. It's called Blades of Time. They had an update that removed the exe file. And it just seemed kind of ludicrous because it was an update to kind of have compatibility with the Mac OS or something like that, and they had like some special file that was based off of the special edition or something like that. Like, they're releasing another version in another language, and they had to update the Steam version for it. However, when they updated it, they forgot to add in the exe, so you couldn't actually play the game. So, yeah, whoops. So that makes me wonder, like, should Steam start adding more verification? Because there's enough games on Steam that already don't work with the whole early access system. We don't need to add in actual games getting randomly updated, and then maybe the developer won't notice. It took 2 weeks for Blades of Time to be playable again, and I actually wanted to play it for one of those weeks. I was like, oh my god, it's not playable right now? What is this madness? I could have re-downloaded the files. People were posting it everywhere, like, hey, if you want to play the game, get done here. But I wasn't going to do that because technically that's not right, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to play something else, so I played something else instead. But, once again, it's one of those things where we don't need more games not working. We don't need, security leaks such as, DRM not being active. It should have... Maybe they should have a system, and maybe they're looking into this as well. Maybe not. Maybe nobody's requesting it because nobody's really thinking about it, because, developers are mostly about, getting their game out there and having people play it. They don't really care too much about the business side unless there's somebody like Zynga and they're just complete assholes. But they're going to be looking at it and be like, maybe they could have it so that there's certain files that have to be active, or a certain DLL has to be there in order for the upload to go through. Like, it'll scan the files real quick and be like, oh, well, you're missing an exe, and at least warn you. Having a warning for no exe in the entire kind of data files would be an interesting concept to have. And I don't know why Steam doesn't already have that, because I know other download services do. I know that, and maybe this is because it's professional software, I know the Adobe Creative Cloud Project Sync has it so that it's like, hey, you're missing this file. Email services all the time, they have very basic checks where it's like, you mentioned application, yet you have no file in here. Sorry, I've been applying to jobs. And so, yeah, you can be like, oh yeah, I've been missing that. So I'm wondering why they don't just have some sort of basic system into that. And maybe they do, and they just completely skipped over it. And maybe it was intentional. Maybe it was completely intentional. Now, I haven't uploaded anything to Steam yet, because I will in the future. I have a game that I am working on, if you're going to follow the development on that. Hopefully I'll get that soon. Oh, what the hell just happened? In my game, I just got teleported to an arena with a giant guy with an axe. Wow, this is going to be fun. I've never fought this guy before. Alright then. Anyways, yeah. So it's just an interesting thing. I think that Steam needs to introduce some more verification, because if this is legitimately one of those cases to where it's like, oh yeah, that was a big whoops, some people were like, oh no, somebody's getting fired, as a joke, and that is possible. Like, that is a big deal. Non-disclosure sort of stuff, happens all the time. Recently, what was it? I can't remember exactly what it was. I remember reading about it, like, literally yesterday, and I can't remember the names, but basically somebody, it was something to do with Oculus. One of the guys that joined Oculus was kind of getting pinned. I think it was between Oculus and Bethesda. Somebody that was in the head department or one of the co-founders or something like that. I don't remember, so don't quote me on it. But basically, non-disclosure agreement or whatever, he talked about stuff he shouldn't have. And yeah, and that that could have lost him his job, like, quite frankly, because it cost them millions or billions of dollars. It cost Facebook a lot of money. And so, that sort of thing can very easily lose people jobs, having an open version to where people can just pirate it. Now, luckily, the developers of Kanon Exiles are pretty cool so far, it seems. And so they're just like, yeah, whatever. It'll just probably make more people buy the game because they weren't going to try it anyways. And now they're going to try it and be like, oh, yeah, I want all those updates. And so, yeah, maybe they'll get more followers. So, yeah, they're looking at it positively. And that is one kind of perk to having it released in early access and then having it pirated in early access because, I don't know how many people are going to go through the trouble of cracking it every time there's an update or something like that. I don't know. Maybe people are. I'm not into piracy, and so maybe I'm underestimating people that actually pirate games. But ultimately, I don't see the point in it. But yeah, anyways, let's go ahead and talk on to our other major topic. I've actually gone on for quite a while now. Let's go ahead and talk about collaborations. So this is sort of a topic that's mostly going to be targeted towards kind of the creators and viewers of YouTube style content, maybe not so much Twitch, but mostly YouTube type content, and maybe some music stuff as well. I just now realized the other enemies are actually locked out here, and I can't actually shoot them with fireballs. That's kind of funny. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about collaborations. So in the YouTube space, there's a lot of smaller creators, including myself, that are always looking for collaborations. We're always looking to grow a community. We're looking for new people to kind of interact with, and I've met a lot of cool people through YouTube and everything like that. Some of my, awesome online friends or people that I met through the YouTube space. James from the Classic Cast, for example. I talk to him all the time. I met him through a random Facebook group for YouTube looking for collaborations and things like that. And he was like, hey, we need somebody to help us. I'm like, sweet, Ollie in, yeah, let's go. And so, yeah, now I consider him a good friend. So, it's awesome when it ends up working out. Unfortunately, it doesn't always end up working out. And a lot of people end up seeing a lot of the same sort of people on certain channels because they end up building a friends group. But on a lot of smaller channels, you don't really end up seeing that all too often. And there's a reason for that. And a lot of people ended up kind of asking me personally because a lot of people look at my content and I know that most of them are probably just trying to be kiss asses or something like that. And they're just like, hey, man, you got great content. You should get a collaboration with somebody, and maybe poking at themselves. But at the same time, it is actually something I've been seriously thinking about, trying to get collaborations to get more eyes on, just me as a person. And I love doing collaboration videos. But when it comes to smaller channels, it is very difficult to find people. And I don't feel like this is a problem with just small channels, but it's also a problem with larger channels as well. You'll notice that they kind of build into networks and things like that. There are certain exceptions that end up getting around this to where they have, like, let's say podcasts and things like that. They'll get guests for podcasts for one-offs and things like that. And that is super awesome. And I was hoping to do that with smaller channels, but it just ended up not working. But collaboration content became really cool, because it actually introduces a lot of variety to different styles of content. Like, let's say, your favorite game reviewer does a collaboration with somebody else, and it ends up adding in a new element to that viewership. It adds in a new viewpoint. You watch a Let's Play, maybe the comedy ends up completely shifting. Maybe their personality becomes way more comedic and everything like that. And maybe you love the collaboration stuff, but you don't like their, solo stuff. The thing is, I feel like collaborations are extremely important, and yet they are extremely difficult to come by. And here is kind of the reasons that I found in doing this podcast and kind of also collaborating in multiple channels over my time on YouTube. And it mostly comes down to people's dedication to the craft and passion. Now, everyone on here on YouTube, mostly, creators and also a lot of viewers as well. Viewers are passionate about who they watch. They're like, hey, I like this guy because he's great. He's got great content, or maybe he's got a great thing, or maybe he doesn't have great content, and you just like him because his personality matches yours, and you just relate to him every time he makes a video. He's like sitting there stuttering every single start of his video. He's like, hi guys and stuff, I'm playing video game, and it's called this, Kanon Exiles, has dong physics, and you're like, this guy, he's so like me and everything, YouTube is so much about that personality, and collaborations are a way to kind of show more of that personality as well, because you're able to interact with somebody else and see how, this is how they act around other people. This is, who they are. And that's always really, really cool to see. The problem with it on smaller channels, at least, and I know that it probably goes into the bigger channels as well, I'll talk about that in a minute, is that people don't really go through with it. And so I've had a lot of collaborations, and people have asked me, why don't you have more guests? I was talking to some graphic designers the other day where they're like, you have this podcast and I noticed you haven't been on for a month. And I'm like, Yeah, and it's simply because, like, I just cannot get people to actually show up to a show. And that comes down to people are just not dedicated. What I do, I get requests to do collaborations on a weekly basis, and I'll see people doing posts on Reddit, on forums, on whatever, on my Discord channel, which you can find below the video for the Broken Chatbox. And they'll be like, hey, I'm looking for people with collaborations. So I'll be like, hey, yo, what's up? And I'll talk with them for like 5-10 minutes or something like that, and then never hear from them again. And that's how it goes. I'll contact them for the podcast. Like, somebody will be like, hey, I'm going to show up for the podcast, and then they just don't end up showing up for the podcast. And it makes growing a network extremely difficult. One thing that I kind of want to have when I end up growing up and, being a bigger channel is I want to have, like, a huge network of people and be like, hey, I'm somebody who's everywhere and just talks to everyone, because I am very much a people's person, no matter how much it kind of seems that I'm not, especially since I do all solo content. And I feel like it's very important for me to interact with other people because it, improves my vision on games. I can look at other people's views and be like, hey, this is what he thinks of this game, and this is how other people with his view set might think of this game as well. And it allows me to kind of critically look at things and be like, all right, this is the type of person who might like this game even better, because that's what I already sort of do. And so it kind of sucks that I can't get these people on. And for people that are trying to look to, like, grow their channel, especially, people who are in that sort of mindset to where it's like, I need to grow my channel and I need to do collaborations and things like that, it ends up becoming very difficult to find people who actually end up following through. And that's what ends up happening for a lot of the smaller channels. There's also a lot of quality differences between the smaller channels, and so you'll look at, like, I'm not trying to, like, hone my own boat. There's people that are definitely way better than I am at my kind of sub range, but there will be somebody with 100 subs with absolutely amazing content. He'll create something that's 100% original, sounds great, looks great, and it is 100% professional. It's something that you want to be a part of. And then there will be somebody with 500, he'll be spouting his, lungs everywhere, and he'll just be absolutely terrible. Nobody really likes him. He, does a bunch of sub for sub stuff, and he's just not a great content creator. The problem is, that is how you get your community, is, collaborating through numbers. And since we don't have a lot of that, a lot of collaborations end up kind of falling flat, which means that it ends up not really meaning much. And so one problem that I ran into when looking for people for collaborations on the podcast was the fact that nobody was wanting to join in when they end up sawing my sub number. So like, oh man, you don't even have 200 subs, which I'm actually really, really close now, so that's awesome. Thank you guys for everyone who's subbed. Thank you so much. It's actually really, really awesome to see those numbers getting up there. It feels fantastic. But they'll see that number and be like, oh, well, like, you don't even have this much. How can I guarantee that your content is good, consistent, and everything like that when you don't even have viewership? Or they'll look at my channel age and be like, oh, well, you've been doing this for 3 years. How have you not been successful? And, I don't have an answer for that, quite frankly. And you know what? They have every right to be like that, because they are going to be worried about where they have their personality set. When you do a collaboration, you're not only representing yourself, you're representing that other person as well, and that other person represents you. By doing a single collaboration, you put in your reputation with theirs, and this is where it kind of goes into the bigger channels of why you don't see a lot of collaborations between a larger variety of creators on YouTube, aside from stuff like podcasts. I was doing a lot of researching and stuff like that. I was reading on what Total Biscuit said a few years back on the Co-optional podcast about it, and what he said on Twitter at the time about it and everything like that, because he runs the Co-optional podcast, which is a fantastic podcast. You should check it out if you're looking for another gaming podcast and you don't already watch it. It's pretty good. They occasionally talk about video games. Most of the time, they don't. But it is still a fantastic show regardless. I enjoy it quite a bit. But I was reading about that, and I was reading about the Normal Boots guys and everything like that, and why they don't really stretch out. And it mostly comes down to, one, scheduling. They say everyone's busy. But it also comes down to there's certain people that they don't want to affiliate with, even though they could easily get them to be on the podcast. So, like, let's say Pro Syndicate guys that had the whole shebang to where they were, like, doing illegal gambling or whatever. They hosted a site and it wasn't actually disclosed properly and everything like that, because they're just jerkwads selling gambling to children. But, like, those guys, like, do you think they would actually turn down a chance to be on a few million, sub channel for a podcast that actually gets a lot of turnovers? Probably not. But do you want to be associated with them? Probably not. So that's one of the things that kind of goes into it. And so when they're looking for guests, they're looking for people who, they know are cool, they know have quality content or something along those lines, and, that sort of thing. Now, obviously, there's kind of bounds to that. You never know what somebody's going to do, and so somebody could be completely awesome. You're like, yeah, I love this guy, he's great. and then he could just end up being a complete jerk afterwards, and that kind of runs into the, you know, smaller channel stuff. There's been plenty of people I've collaborated with to where they just ended up not being good people, and that's unfortunate because I've lost a lot of good videos because of that as well. It's like, hey, you know, they're like, hey, don't even release that video because I don't like you, and they're like, all right, I wasn't gonna release it anyways because, yeah, you're a jerk. But yeah, drama stuff aside, you know, that is one of the kind of concerns when it comes to collaborations. It is an interesting discussion, I think. And I'd love to, you know, get some other people on the podcast again and kind of talk to them about it. You know, what do viewers think as well? You know, you guys in chat, if you could tell me. I don't think anybody's in chat right now, but anybody who watches the archive, you know, you can go ahead and tell me what you think about it. You know, is it important to viewers to see collaboration stuff? Because personally, I love it. And I know that on a lot of other stuff, you know, people have loved my collaboration stuff as well. And it's really fun. It is a way to meet new people, and that's kind of like one of my goals in this whole YouTube career thing, is that I want to meet new people. I want to meet new creative artists that are not in the normal industry. They are within a different space of their own. It is just incredibly interesting to see all the people that are around here, and I've met some cool people as well. Like, it just kind of sucks that I can't meet more of them and grow a community that would be able to grow together. That would be fantastic. So, yeah, that's really all I had to say about that one. I don't really know if that was relevant to viewers or not. I just realized I can knock that down. Oh, I probably could have used that to kill him. Aww, that was unfortunate. I just killed a giant statue for no reason. I know I've just been sitting here, like, spamming the same attack, but I've also been trying to, like, talk and stuff like that, so I apologize if the gameplay is all not all too interesting. What else is going on in the news? I know, basically the news has been full of political stuff recently. I know there's some tech stuff going on. Voice recognition is getting better, which is nice. There's some collaborations between companies. There's Snap has its own company now that has stocks and things like that. Or they're going public with their stocks because you have to legally after a certain period of time. So all that type of stuff is interesting, but there's nothing really super exciting for me except for one news I heard about, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that they're actually going to be coming out with bendable screened phones, which is going to be incredibly interesting to see. I'm just making sure my capture is working. It's stuttering on Twitch. I don't know why. So apologies if the audio sounds stuttery or something like that. It seems to be stuttering on Twitch. So hopefully that's not a recording issue, because I've been having problems with some of my software recently, which is very unfortunate. Another reason why the podcast has been going, because I haven't had time. So I'm like, here at 5, and I'm like, all right, it's not working. I just don't have time for it. So, you know, that sort of thing. Anyways, apologies for that. But yeah, bendable screened phones. Now, we already have this. I think it's Samsung who, you know, develops those phones to where, you know, there's a slight curve on the edge of the screens. I have a Galaxy S7, which sort of has the curved glass and everything like that. And so they have these sort of curved screen that goes off to the side, and it's supposed to make it more seamless and everything like that. Now, on newer phones, I notice it also causes a lot of bleed on them as well for the kind of prototypes that they've shown, but that could easily change. But I'm actually excited for that. Bendable and more durable screens is exactly what I want on a phone, because phones can break very easily, and they are very, very expensive, probably too expensive. So, like, let's say my Galaxy S7 is like a $600 phone. It is ridiculous. It's ridiculously priced. Like, I could have bought a brand new graphics card with that. I could be running I could be running a 1080 instead of a 1070 right now with that money, but instead I needed a phone, and I decided to upgrade to one that was actually decent, and so I got a new one. And yeah, that's how it goes. It's an expensive phone. But yeah, interesting, you know, kind of news about that is that they are looking at getting those in. So that's going to be really, really cool to see bendable screens kind of making the way. I can't wait until we're in the future to where we have like foldable screens and everything like that. Like, oh, I just want a screen that I can fold in my pocket. You know, laptop on basically a tablet that fits in your pocket, except it's bigger than your pocket because it can expand out. That would be great. I'm also excited for some of the TV and monitor tech that is coming out. I want OLED to be more kind of achievable for the consumer market. Right now it's extremely expensive. There's no new news on that, but you know, once again, it's just something to talk about because I'm running out of topics near the end of the show. I am, you know, almost gone for an hour now, so this is about when I start to run out of stuff to talk about. So I'll probably end up pulling up some news articles on the side. Not really sure. I should probably kill these things real quick. First off, what else did I see on the news? There was something else. Oh yeah, Dirty Bomb. I can talk about Dirty Bomb for a minute because Dirty Bomb was a game I played all the way back in 2014, I think, in the closed alpha and closed beta and everything like that. And I played it during release as well, but the game had some massive hacker problems, and I was not a fan of that. It was also published by Nexon, which had a bunch of pay-to-win stuff kind of trickling in very, very quickly to where it's like, all right, it's not necessarily pay-to-win, but the kind of grind to get credits and everything like that is kind of ridiculous. Now, fast forward to today, and, well, like yesterday or 2 days ago or something like that, Splash Damage actually released information saying that they are going to be self-publishing the game now. So they released a small announcement video, an announcement on their Steam page that the game is going to be down for a little bit because they are transferring the servers and everything like that. And that is actually fantastic. There are other games that have actually self-published that I absolutely love, and I love that they ended up going self-publishing. Other ones from, Nexon themselves, actually. So Dungeon Fighters Online is one that I always like to reference when it comes to that, because they are a game that I enjoy a lot. It's a game that is very, very classic, and I love going back to it all the time. And they ended up self-publishing it, and ever since it's self-published, it has been 1,000 times better. They were able to add leniency to the cash shop. They removed all the pay-to-win stuff. They made a bunch of other type of gameplay changes that Nexon, I guess, would never let them do, or maybe they never got the chance to do because Nexon's like, hey, do this instead and stuff like that. And I assume Splash Damage is probably running into the same problem, especially looking at the fact that on the Steam page, from a developer of the game, they tell you how to farm credits as a free-to-play player, apologizing for the fact that it has to be that way. So hopefully we end up seeing some rebalancing there. There's obviously a lot of development stuff that can happen between the kind of things. One thing that is major with Nexon is that they don't really look at hackers a lot. A lot of the Nexon games have hackers galore, and it is extremely unfortunate. And I believe Lawbreakers is being published by Nexon, and it makes me very scared for that game, which looks fairly interesting. I had a closed beta key, and I never ended up trying it out for time-wise, but it looks interesting, and I want to play it really bad, but at the same time, it's published by Nexon, so I know there's going to be cheaters, which is very unfortunate. However, in the video, one of the very first things that they said for Splash Damage, they were like, yeah, Dirty Bomb is getting new anti-cheat. And so they even said the version of the anti-cheat they're going to, and they're like, hey, we're going to be doing this now, and it's going to be implemented right away. And so, it's going to be in there really, really quick, which is fantastic. They're able to kind of cut down on those cheaters and stuff like that. It'll make the game a lot better. Now, I know the game is improved as well, but they are saying that they're going to be looking at doing more and more content. I assume having the rights to Dirty Bomb will allow them to add in or get more revenue from the game. Now, the negative side of this, as with all self-publishing, is the fact that you don't have a backing of a publisher when you end up running out of funds. Let's say you're like, kind of running low on credits because maybe you had a really bad month on your game. You don't have funds for your next month of development from Nexon. You're going to have it from yourself. So, they got to get smart with their crediting stuff. And Splash Damage is a developer I have a lot of credit, a lot of respect for. And I give them a lot of credit for the games they make because they make good competitive games. Dirty Bomb is a great game when you end up getting down to it. It is a very fast-paced, first-person competitive, objective-based game, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's not part of the hero shooter genre like Overwatch or anything like that. So don't try and mix it in with that bundle and say, like, Overwatch is going to kill it or something like that, because a lot of people already said that, and it's not true. It's a completely different type of game. It is more class-based and everything like that, and you have loadouts, and it is actually really, really good. But at the same time, it doesn't have a very large player base right now, maybe not as large as I hoped it would. And I know that there's a lot of people that like it, but at the same time, it is one of those games, since it is free to play, it ends up having a sort of cash shop system that turns a lot of people off, which is unfortunate because it is a fun game, and I enjoy it quite a lot. But yeah, so I may reinstall it after the servers transition, everything like that. They are having server problems right now, of course, because every time a developer or, publisher even goes on to a new server, it always has to have problems, and, that's just kind of a fact of the industry. That's just how it goes, so hopefully they end up sorting out those issues soon. It would be nice. What else is newsworthy this week? I don't know. I might actually end the show in an hour and see how that goes instead of going an hour and a half. I've noticed that the hour tends to work better. I'm also running out of things to talk about. What else? What else do I got going? I may as well start doing my conclusion / sort of chill version. News for the podcast. There is an audio-only version going up on SoundCloud, hopefully, if I ended up setting it up properly today. I don't know. It's going to be like an archive, but it is going to be audio only, and I'm going to try and get it available on Google Play as well. I noticed that since I have a business account with Google, I have all of that type of stuff set up, and so I can actually be like, oh, hey, I'll just host my podcast over there, and hopefully it ends up, working out for me, and maybe we can have some audio-only listeners as well. So that'll be on SoundCloud. I will have a link below on my Twitch thing and on the archive video as well. I don't have it set up yet because I don't have all the links and everything like that available yet. I haven't created my account link yet, but I do have my account created and everything like that, so it is going to be going up soon, which is fantastic. So if you're interested in an audio-only version, maybe you play a game in the background while you're listening to podcasts like I do all the time, or maybe you're working on other projects. Whenever I'm editing a video, I'll have like a podcast going or something like that, just because it just flows with the time. You just listen to it and it's chill. Or maybe I'll be washing dishes and I listen to some tech news or something like that. That's what I do. So if you're looking for that and you don't really want to hear the game audio in the background, then yeah, that's totally somewhere to look at. So that's great. And obviously the archive will still be going up on YouTube just like normal. So if you want to watch it, or maybe you missed part of the live show, you can always end up checking that out as well over on YouTube.com/MICHAELPSTANICH, aka Michael P. Stanich. So yeah, it's fantastic over there. I am doing reviews. I'm gonna try and push for weekly releases again, or daily releases is one thing that I really want to do, but I'm probably not going to be able to do that just for time's sake. But I've got a few reviews coming up on my channel as well, and so I've got Mega Dimension Neptunia is coming out on Monday, and so if you want to check that one out, it is going to be up there. I also did one for Hyperdimension Neptunia Rebirth 1, which ended up being a fantastic video. My voice was a little bit scratchy in it, so it doesn't sound exactly like me, but it is definitely my content, and it sounds, alright, I guess. I was not happy with the way the audio turned out in that one, and I apologize. But yeah, it's a good video. And then I also have Ori and the Blind Forest is coming out for another video as well. So that's going to be a review that I get done. I think that one's going to be after Assault Android Cactus, because I have to get to a certain section in the game in a single playthrough, because I want to show certain different kind of mechanics. So I'm not just showing off one area like I have during this entire podcast. So, yeah. Anyways, this has been Michael with the Broken Chatbox. Hopefully next week I can end up getting some guests going back on. There are some collaboration efforts I am working on as well. I don't really know too much about it. I might be starting another podcast if he ends up following through with what he says. Otherwise, probably not. I don't know. You can end up finding all that info on my Twitter and my YouTube channel. I'll end up doing some more daily video stuff. Also, I might be releasing a Minecraft video soon, which is going to be ridiculous. My little sister is way into Minecraft, and so she's been asking constantly, like, when are you gonna make a Minecraft video? And I'm like, I don't play Minecraft, but for her sake I ended up going into it, so I'm gonna be having a very comedy centric video just for her coming out. And I also have the Sonic Riders video almost done, which will be out eventually, so if you're looking for a retro game to look at, I'll have a video for it. So that's gonna be interesting. It'll be the first one that I've done on that as well. And yeah, so this has been the podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to try and kill these things and probably die in the process as I end the podcast. So yeah, make sure to check out the archive if you want to end up checking out the other episodes of the podcast. You can also check out my impressions reviews, my topic videos, and future other types of content. You can also follow me here on Twitch for the other types of live streaming I may end up doing in the future. I've always tried to live stream, but I just never have the timing to do it. I'm never awake enough. I don't brush my hair, there's a number of excuses that I have, but there is no excuse. I should be streaming more, especially with the amount of time that I have right now. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I've said it like 20 times. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe over on YouTube. Thank you guys so much, and see you guys next week around the same time. I was really late today, so yeah. Anyways, bye.